Welcome to the Champ We Are United podcast, the number one football comic-based podcast. Not
Yes.
just covering the United verse, but the whole DC world of football comics, alongside everything Roy of the Rovers, as well as popular newspaper strips like Dave Score a Story and The Legendary Striker. I'm your host, Paul Tangent Richardson, and this is episode 93.
Yes. 93. Get it.
Yes, back of the net. Right. We are a small squad this episode, with many of the team being rested because it's obviously we're coming up to the hectic Christmas period. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to the two squad members joining me in this episode. You might have heard one of them there. First up, you thought he was obsessed with how many times Roy Race went in goal, but tonight he will prove he has other football comic passions as he takes a break from hosting. Yes, it is Mute Button Matt.
Well said there, Paul. Yeah. Hiya, how you doing? Good to be
Good, thank
here.
you.
Hello, listeners. Looking forward to this show.
Yep, I think we've got a good one on tonight, and I managed to say Mute Button Matt. It's so difficult to say. As I said though, so completing the squad tonight, he is so much more than a presenter who waves goodbye at the listeners on a podcast. He seeks out the often unknown or potentially forgotten stories. It's none other than Neil Bygone Berrigan.
Hey, hey.
And
Thank
there he
you
is,
for the.
listeners, waving at you again. It helps at this moment, Neil, for you to say hello.
Hello. I was too busy waving and going, yeah, doing me old round of applause. Thank you for the nice introduction. Great to be here again. Looking forward to tonight's show. And welcome, Paul.
Yes, cheers. Right. To the listeners, I'm sure you're all aware the rest of our fantastic squad. But just to say, we expect Goal to be back next episode, but we're still awaiting a physio's update on the state of Simo, the voice of reason's Wi-Fi. And of course, we hope that Ridders is enjoying his sabbatical with Alex Hedgehog Jones. We haven't heard any stories yet, but I'm sure there's a doozy of an episode when Ridders is ready to tell us all there. So, without further ado, I shall go on to the running order. Of course, we're going to start off with the social media, which Matt will bring us, obviously known as Melvin's Musings. I have the long awaited and much promised part one of the Melchester Rovers season review
Finally,
1984-85.
you do
Finally,
realise you mentioned that about 6 months ago.
yeah, I am aware. I am aware. I got around to it in the end. And then Neil has got a very interesting Roy of the Rovers novel, which I'm not going to spoil too much for you before we get to that section. And then Matt, as I said, obsessed with Roy going in goal and showing that he's got other comic passions. Another goalkeeper story, Safest Hands of Soccer, the 1978 annual. And then, as you know, we'll round off the episode giving you all the slight addresses where you can reach out to us and see our content. And we shall say goodbye to you all. So then, Matt, over to you and the social media feedback. Unfortunately, without Goal, I don't think the three of us are brave enough to attempt a theme tune here. I can't remember. I don't think we've got anything in the studio either. So Melvin's Musings it is, Matt.
Melvin's Musings is, yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, so social media feedback. First of all, from the Roy of the Rovers Comic 40 Years On Facebook site. And remember, last episode was episode 92,
Yes.
when we did Tommy's Troubles. So we had the creation of Barnes United,
Yeah.
and we had Collector's Corner when we were talking about missing copies of Tiger, as you remember.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It was very interesting, actually.
So first of all, actually, the first feedback is not from the Melster. It's actually from our US friend of the show, George Prince.
Hey, Prince of the
Hey,
Show.
Prince of the show. Yeah, the Prince of the show. Um, yeah, we could have inserted some sort of Prince track there, wouldn't we?
We could have done.
But we haven't. Yeah, so George says, love this week's episode. Glad I had my concentration head on a la Wurzel Gummidge for Collector's Corner. I have 95% from 1971 to 1985, so looking good. All right, so I guess he's Tiger and Roy of the Rovers. And then he covers his favorite five Roy of the Rovers strips. Because you remember, Goal came up with his
You put it
genius
out
idea
there.
of
Yeah.
vote for your goat
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
goat or
Something
Dunno.
like that. Yeah, he was
Something
auctioning
like
a goat, or he's going to get a goat to do
He's
the
going to get a
decorating
goat.
around
Yeah,
Neil's house. But
I
Neil
think
had
so.
done in Collector's Corner or something like that. I can't remember what it
Well,
was now.
Rovers had, didn't they? They had the
Mascot.
mascot.
They had the mascot
Billy,
of the
wasn't
goat. Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Billy, yeah.
Billy. Yeah, the imaginatively named goat.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, so thanks very much, George. Thanks for your choices. I won't read them out because when Goal comes back, he can kind of do a top five from all the votes that we've received
Just a
in.
silly one to interrupt there, Matt. Can I ask George, would you mind getting in touch? Will you confirm? I'm wondering if Harchester United, although they're not comic, but obviously from Dream Team, if they'd be his favourite fictitious team, because obviously they play in purple. Not quite purple rain, but purple. Yeah, I
Oh,
should have left that, shouldn't I?
Jesus
oh.
Christ. Oh, God. When's
And
Goal
that's why
back?
Goal's here
When's
to
Goal?
provide the comedy.
Please come back, Goal. Hope you get better soon. Okay, moving on to the Melchester. So, Mr. Melvin, episode 92 is in a class of its own. Great headline there, Trevor. The latest Champ We Are United podcast is textbook stuff. Goal, Tangent Paul, and Mute Button Matt schooled any podcast pretenders to the UK #1 football comic podcast crown or mortarboard with this gold star masterclass. Tangent Paul really had to do his homework for this week's comic collector's corner assignment, which was set by fellow comic book scholar Russ Port. Yep, hi, yeah, shout out to Russ.
Russ, yeah.
The grade A comic collector wanted answers regarding some missing editions of Tiger. However, despite proffering numerous well-founded theories, the podcast's resident picture story professor didn't quite reach a conclusion, and therefore this important research continues. Watch this space. Yeah, you didn't actually come up to any results there.
No, we didn't,
No.
and I'm
It's
sure
okay.
we
That's
will
fine.
revisit it at
It's
some
a
point.
mystery. That's right.
It's a mystery, exactly.
Goal followed up Tangent's thesis with his informative issues section that also presented some intriguing questions regarding the edition numbers and dates of Football Picture Story Monthly. The Don of Champ Towers. The Don.
Mhm.
God, not sure. Don Revy?
Yeah.
Well,
he
really,
would go off to Bazran, wouldn't he?
yeah, really knew his subject with a little assistance from the tangential faculty head.
Trevor, love it, love it.
Provided a really handy history of the pocket-sized publication. However, it's Mute Button Matt's Tommy's Troubles tutorial that scored 10 out of 10 and sent into the top of the form. Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah.
Shucks. The story of Tommy Barnes' Crowhurst School Days is a Roy of the Rovers classic, which Mute Button Matt masterfully curates. Listen and learn. Thanks very much, Trevor. And also, he says apologies to Stratos and Nikos because he was unwell, wasn't he? He didn't
Yeah, there
give
was no
feedback there.
feedback,
So yeah. But he says it was epic and he thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much, Trevor.
Yeah, it was a brilliant show, that one.
Yeah. If people haven't listened to that, and definitely do so. And actually, just quickly before I shout out to Nikos because he asked me to do an interview, and I've sent like a written interview, and they posted it on the unofficial Greek fan club. So thank you very much, Nikos. Hamish Witter, who's joined the Facebook group.
Wow, brilliant.
Hamish, who also for ages has followed us on Twitter, but he's down in New Zealand, of course.
Yeah.
New Zealand friend of the show, Kiwi friend of the show. He said, listened on the way to work this morning, like Tommy's Troubles when I was a lad, but had a reread of the series a couple of years ago and was struck by how repetitive it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've all mentioned that for sure, definitely. Thank you very much, Hamish. Onto the Champ site, and we've got friend of the show, View from the House of Lord, Adrian
the House of Lord, yeah.
Everybody in the House of Lord. I nearly went for it.
You nearly went for it there.
Pulled back.
It's like, is he going to?
God, no. Adrian says, I've really enjoyed this podcast. I love the Tommy's Troubles episode. I can't believe I still got a mention, even though I didn't do feedback. Yeah, I know. You owe us double feedback now, Adrian.
Yeah,
you're kind of in debt to us now. So we're expecting extra feedback this week. He says he's having a bit of a rough time at the moment, so this cheered him up. So good. Nice to hear, Adrian. Glad it cheered you up. And he gave us his top 5 stories, but I won't mention his top 5 stories.
No. I feel a special episode coming on, but there
could be. Yeah, it could be ideas for a future show. The Mighty World of British Comics. So obviously a post on there too. And we got some feedback from Neil Jackson. He said as a QPR supporter, I'm more interested in the big colour photo of Stan Bowles. That's because I'd posted the
Yeah.
cover
Saw
picture
that.
of Tommy's
Yeah.
Troubles.
Oh,
So I
Stan
did
Bowles,
post a
brilliant.
picture of Stan Bowles. Yeah, so there's a picture there with Stan. And Nikos said, great. So thank you very much, Nikos. And Chris Matterface, he gave us some great feedback. He said, just listened, great listen. How many grounds did Barnes United get through? By the time I started reading, circa 1983, they were playing on a ground which was said to have been converted for some old council tennis courts,
Yeah.
which must be different to the one described in this podcast. They got kicked off that, but found a full-on, half-derelict, disused football stadium on the edge of town, which they somehow never knew about before, did it up and started playing there. Then they got kicked off of that right at the end of the original run. When it returned, they were playing on yet another new ground, a former farmer's field, sounds familiar, which they gradually did up only to get kicked off. Then they found and did in yet another ground, which lasted until the end of the second run. They were certainly masters of DIY and landscaping as well as football.
That is brilliant. And actually, as you're reading that out, I was thinking, obviously, I did make mention in the last episode that Ginger Collins, I mean, he could have gone into calligraphy the way he'd written Barnes United on the side of that fence. But the other thing is, going back to my junior days of school teams, but even other club sides, I mean, it was just, on Hackney Marshes or just some park where you rented a pitch and you
Just
were
a
lucky if you
pitch.
got a hot shower or not,
Yeah.
There
It
might be
always
dressing rooms or not.
always amazes me. Like I know it was mentioned about no adults were involved. They were, they
Yeah.
were quite happy for Tommy
Yeah.
to go in there with the fees and you know go
But the
to
other
Paint
disciplinary meetings
strippers.
and
Yeah,
And
but the other
yeah.
thing is there, like Bygone as well, is that actually once they got these grounds up, they're probably better than some non-league
oh,
grounds. I reckon Barnes United had better facilities than Durrell's Palace.
well that I was just gonna say Jono's Palace there and that's another story. They used to find some good grounds, didn't they?
They did.
Hmm.
They did.
The
I mean,
groundskeeper used to whip them up into shape really quick.
Oh God,
I'm thinking that
yeah.
maybe, and I haven't looked in the actual squad of Barnes United, but I'm sure there would have been a young Nick Knowles was probably in that team as well. That
Yes,
kind of,
yes, we'll have
just
to
want
do some
need to
research.
look, need to do some research. I know,
Where are they now? Well,
where
you
are
might
they?
not have
Maybe
realised
he
it.
was Tubby. Maybe
Yeah,
Tubby turned
He
into Nick
was
Knowles.
Tubby was good with that roller.
yeah,
He's sort
It's
of
good for that
leaning
role.
over that roller, giving it a good push.
What you might not realise is Barnes United's left back was now on ground force.
Charlie Dimmitt must have been round, hanging around somewhere. One of the girlfriends.
Brilliant. But thank you very much, Chris. Glad you enjoyed that. And then finally, I'll finish off on YouTube. So yeah, by the way, if you haven't seen it, guys, you can check us out on YouTube at Champ We Are United. Nikos said another excellent, enjoyable presentation. So thank you very much, Nikos. And we have Ozzy Lee. He goes,
Hey, friend of the
another
show.
cracking podcast, chaps. Episode 92 already. Would you believe it? Big 100 is looming. Perhaps you can bring back some former hosts and guests for a reunion celebration.
Oh,
Well,
great minds and all that. Great
we've
minds
got
and
some
all that, Aussie
ideas.
Lee. Yeah.
We've got some ideas for
Mm.
yeah, the 100th show. But yeah, more on that another time. And he said also thanks for the shout outs too. Always great to hear some more Aussie references in the strips going all the way back, as did Goal's rendition of Down Under. Really enjoyed the deep dive into the Barnes United origin story. Definitely one of my favourite strips over the years. Strong audience identification going on there. And then he gives his top five as well. So again, I won't
Ooh.
divulge.
They're mounting
what
up. They're
Aussie
mounting
Lee's-
up.
They're mounting up. Yeah. So
And ye of little faith, when Goal said that, I was like, we wouldn't get one, and that's
I know,
several there. So good stuff.
I know it hurts me, but I'm probably going to have to apologise to him.
Oh, I'm not
God.
apologising. He
Oh,
won't.
okay.
He's not here, is he? He won't listen to this.
No, he won't
He
listen
doesn't.
to this.
He doesn't listen to episodes when he's not on them.
He-
He's a bit of a diva, listeners.
Who
He's a
else
bit of a
does?
diva.
I don't.
I did.
Oh, I'm on everyone anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. So yeah, so just on that, if any other listeners, if they want to vote for their favourite stories in Roy of the Rovers, your top five, then we'll let you know how to get in contact with us later in the show. But it'd be great to hear them. And Goal, when he comes back, we'll be able to kind of play back those results.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's
So we're
it.
doing it
That's
like
cool.
they used to do it on the in the comic where Roy, the main story, wasn't included in the voting, or are you
Oh
not
no,
allowed
no,
to
you got to
vote?
do that. Yeah. So
No. It was included, wasn't
it
it?
was. Yeah, it always
It
was.
was
Was it? I
included,
didn't
but
think it was.
I'm sure the result. Yeah, but they've probably doctored the results.
I don't think so. Do you
I
think
don't
they
think if Roy
doctored
had have
it?
got voted as the least popular story, it would have been You know,
Do you
if they'd
know?
have accepted all of Bygone's votes with him saying get rid of Roy out of Roy the
Do you
Rovers
know though?
comic, I don't think that'd have been published. Sorry, Bygone.
I'd love to know
He so did that.
how accurate it was because I cannot believe the Marx Brothers went so early. Uh,
Oh, they did
Uh,
3 years,
it's
didn't they?
it's
it's still a
yeah,
great story and a great art. There was lots of potential in that, I think.
it's an interesting one though. It's always difficult because, in all
Yeah,
fairness, you can only, I think Barry and his team can only go with the feedback they got. But
yeah,
then you've got readers like me, I think everybody knows I was an avid reader, but hardly ever would I even write in the boxes on the comic because I considered it as defacing the comic. And I never sent any letters in, anything like that. So, you know, I could be wrong. And I know it's interesting. Barry has said in the past, I believe the tape ran out for the Roy Race phone in on the
yeah,
first one. So obviously they've
Yeah,
got a lot of readers. But as we know, you know, in the height of the comic, there was something like, was it 20,000, 25,000
yeah.
readers? Well,
more than that. No,
more than that.
250. You mean
Sorry.
250? You mean? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So yeah. So you know that. So I'm sure it was a very small percentage of people
Yeah.
sending in their things, but they could only go with those votes. But it
Not
is
getting enough votes.
interesting, Neil, just quickly, because obviously it's going to be covered by Matt. But you know, as we all know, safest hands in soccer. But then they brought back goalkeeper, which
Yeah,
basically was the same story. So
yeah.
you know, stories did get voted out, which probably
Come back.
shouldn't have been. You know,
Tommy's trouble. Yeah,
we'll never
well,
know.
came back when
Sounds like,
started
yeah.
reprints and stuff. So.
yeah.
Mm, yeah. Anyway, it'll be
Another
anyway.
episode.
Anyway,
Content
anyway.
for another episode.
Get
Yes.
get your votes in anyway. Get your votes in,
Yeah,
listeners. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So back to you, Paul.
Brilliant. Cheers, Matt. Well, although I'm presenting, I'm going to be handing over to myself. And as we've said, the well, I'm saying much anticipated, maybe much anticipated by me, but
Yeah.
it's going to be another European adventure, hopefully. And this time it is Roy of the Rovers. And of course, we're going to be focusing on Melchester Rovers. So I'm going to pick up the story from edition 18th of August 1984. But before we start, I thought I'd give a little background. The previous season had seen Roy return to Melchester after he'd left the club for Walford Rovers. And after initial issues with a new player, Rob Richards, Roy formed a formidable partnership up front with Richards, and that saw Melchester win the FA Cup and against Walford at Wembley. In the pre-season, Rovers played in a six-a-side tournament where Roy was impressed by Carford's Cole Hunt and managed to sign him for Rovers. So there's a bit of the background. Now the new season's about to start, and it's a pre-season, and Melchester are to face close rivals Melbourne when a helicopter lands on the pitch, and none other than cricketing legend Jeff Boycott emerges, and it's announced that he is in fact going to be the new chairman of Melchester. So massive story there, and obviously everybody quite shocked by that. But
Yeah,
then obviously we move on to the start of the match, and I've got a couple of things here. And we've already mentioned in the last edition, our last episode, about these Tiger comics. But I thought this was interesting. So this is a question for all the listeners. So before I start the match, we see the teams lining up
Yeah.
to kick off, and we've got Roy, and he's talking to the Melchester players, and
Yeah.
Neville Jones is replying, but his speech bubble is actually blank. And I was wondering if that might just be my addition or if that was just a misprint or something. For some reason, the words weren't put in the speech bubble. Well, I just thought that was quite a little interesting footnote
well,
before we start.
I'll have to do what you normally do, and I'll have to
Pull
go
up
off and,
your
and try and investigate. Go on, keep going, and I'll let you know.
right. So then on to another favourite that we like to do on the podcast. And this is for you, Ridders. And I know you're more of a United man, but Ridders loves a lineup.
Yeah.
And so I thought, as we got a lineup for this pre-season friendly, and it's against Melchester, great rivals, Melbourne. In goal, Charlie Carter. Right back, Noel Baxter. Central defence, Duncan Mackay and Vic Guthrie.
Mackay,
Left back, Mackay. You say
can't
Mackay and
believe.
I say Mackay. Left back, which I found this interesting because I always
Yeah.
think of this player as more of a reserve team player, but Steve Naylor. A midfield three of Blackie Gray, new signing Carl Hunt, and the young Jimmy Slade, although we'll come on to that, I might mention that in a bit, and
Oh yeah,
a front three of Rob Richards, Roy Race, and Neville Jones. And on the bench, we've got Kenny Loken, Glenn Ritchie, and Mervyn Wallace. So a very strong lineup there. So on to the action, and we get Carl Hunt is on the ball and he's moving Rovers onto the front foot. And we're informed, as obviously we often are with the crowd noise, that along with Roy, he will be the main force in the bid for Cup Winners' Cup glory. And Carl Hunt gets the ball to Roy, but uncharacteristically, Roy fires over the bar. He then heads another good chance straight at the keeper. And it's all Rovers. I mean, they're on fire. But then against the run of play, from what I can see, it's a low cross. It seems to sort of cannon off or go through Duncan McKay's legs. And at the far post, Melborough score, and it's 1-0, can you believe, against the run of play. It's been all Rovers, but it's 1-0 to Melbourne, and it stays 1-0 at half time. In the second half, we see Roy hit the post, and we see Neville Jones through, and he beats the keeper, only to see the ball go wide. Then Carl Hunt has a great effort, which is saved. And can you believe the final whistle blows to a stunned Mel Park? The final score is Melchester 0 and Melbourne 1. And what not a way to start the tenureship of Jeff Boycott's chairmanship, I should say.
He wouldn't have been happy, would he, Jeff?
No, he wouldn't have been happy. And we move on then to, I'm not going to mention all the issues, but we're moving on now to issue 25th of August, and it's the season opener. And I thought this was interesting because obviously we're going back some years, of course, 1984, and we're informed it's a Cannon League game. Who remembers that? Cannon, sponsors of the league. So it's a Cannon League game, Mel Park against Blackpool. Of course, as a young reader, I was really thinking, what, Nipper Lawrence and all of those guys, but bit of a spoiler alert, we won't be seeing any of those Blackpool legends in this game. Before the kickoff, we see Jeff Boycott stick his head in and into the dressing room, and he interrupts one of Roy's team talk. As the players take to the field, they're talking about it, and we can see that Roy is visibly angry, and he fires the ball straight at Charlie Carter in the warm-up, almost injuring Charlie Carter. And obviously, we know that the kind of the chairman's interruptions and trying to tell how Roy to run the team led to Roy leaving Rovers. So, of course, all of a sudden, the great Jeff Boycott's in, but there seems to be some controversy. But as the players are lining up before the start of the match, Jimmy Slade shouts to his teammates before the kickoff, and he's fired up for this match, and he obviously wants to make sure that the team get off to a good start and impress their new chairman. But Jimmy's so fired up straight away, soon after the kickoff, he gives away a free kick and he picks up a yellow card. And Blackpool produced a fantastic free kick, but Charlie Carter is equal to the set piece play, is headed towards goal. He saves it, and it's from Blackpool's Archie Thompson, who we were informed was in fact the second highest scorer in the league last season. Roy can see that young Jimmy Slade, and this is, I kind of made a note, and I saw this earlier on, and I meant to make a note of this. This is 1984. Young Jimmy Slade signed for Rovers, I think, in 73.
Yes.
I just find that quite funny. But anyway,
and I think he was like 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Then, so that's 11 years later. So he's 27 or 28.
Be moving into the prime of his career, I would say. But he's still referred to as young Jimmy Slade.
I suppose it's like the
young Mr. Grace.
I was to say, "Are you being served?"
Yeah, young Mr. Grace, the 98-year-old Mr. Grace.
Yeah. So my mind's just wandering. Sorry, go on, Karen.
Yeah, I know where it's wandering, and I'm back to the Melchester Rovers opening day of the season Blackpool game here. It's 0-0. Roy can obviously see though that Jimmy Slade's fired up, and he brings Jimmy into the game, and Roy's darting into the box, and he's making a fantastic decoy run, making space for the young midfielder and taking defenders with him. And Slade just unleashes a magnificent shot, and it's into the bottom of the corner.
Yes.
1-0, bottom of the net, Melchester, first goal of the season. I mean, if you get a chance to see this action in your copy of Roy of The Rovers, I implore you, dig it out. It's a great goal. I tell you what,
great Jarry.
Yeah, it could be goal of the season already. the action moves on to Jimmy Slade. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to make reference here. I don't know if anybody remember when David Beckham played that famous World Cup qualifying Greece, covering every blade of grass. Jimmy Slade's saying he's manic, he's running around, he's covering every blade, he's diving into challenges. He just misses a Blackpool player though, and it could have, well, it could easily, if he'd have caught that Blackpool player, I don't think he was going to get near the ball. It would have been a second yellow card. Roy's
He's up
telling him
for
to
it.
calm
He's up for
down.
it,
He's
isn't he?
definitely up.
He's up
Yeah.
for it.
He's
Yeah.
already in the book, and so obviously he needs to calm down. And Jimmy takes on board Roy's lecture, and he's back on the ball. He's beating Blackpool players at the will. He's passed one, then two. Then he plays a lovely through ball to Carl Hunt, the new signing, a thunderous shot. It cannons off the crossbar, but diving in just as a Blackpool player goes to clear it. It's a brave header. It's 2-0. Diving header from Slade. Straight on that rebound, 2-0 to Rovers. It's just a fantastic solo performance from Slade. He's on fire. After that fantastic first half, as the players return to the dressing room, suddenly there's a new tension though. You'd think that everybody would be on top of the way they've been performing, but they see that the new chairman, Jeff Boycott, is outside the dressing room. Surely not more intervention from the cricketing legend. And suddenly the players hold back and we see Roy and Jeff, they're deep in conversations, the players looking on nervously. And then Roy walks away from Jeff, but he's smiling and he says to the players, I think we're going to get along fine. He's just apologised and hopes we'll forgive him if he drops a few more clangers as he finds his feet. Wow, big relief there because, of course, the Rovers players wouldn't have wanted to see their player manager upset again. And the harmony then between the manager and Roy, straight away, it's transferring onto the field. As we go to the second half, Roy and Jimmy Slade are combining, and Roy makes it 3-0 after a great back heel from Jimmy Slade. Again, seriously, if you get the highlights reel of this match, you've got to watch it. It's one of the classic games. And then we see a free kick routine involving Carl Hunt, Roy and Neville Jones, with Jimmy firing home for 4-0. Then to cap an amazing performance, Slade dribbles past 3 Blackpool players. I mean, goes past them as if they're not even there before scoring the 5th Rovers goal. And of course, his 4th.
Wow.
So, welcome Jeff Boycott to the club and the opening day of the season. Melchester Rovers 5, Blackpool Rovers 0. And what a performance from Jimmy Slade. After the match, we see one of the directors mentioning to Jeff Boycott that surely Jimmy Slade should be in the reckoning for the England team. But Jeff is in contemplative thought and he turns around and says he thinks that Roy should be. After a brief chat with Roy, Jeff just asks Roy to consider it. Roy, of course, has been against the style of play for England and the structure for many years. Roy, though, also to his new chairman, points out that he's also getting on. And this is quite interesting, listeners. Roy's about to turn 30 in 1984. We're informed. After Jimmy Slade's 4-goal contribution, Jimmy is now in the public eye and he tells the press waiting outside after the match that he's going to appear on a new children's television show, Rock Around. Not sure if anybody remembers that.
Yeah,
maybe Run Around or something.
As I say, it sounds like Mike Reid, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If Goal was here, he'd do Mike Reid, wouldn't he?
Rock around.
Yeah, rock around, run around. Anyway, so we then see Roy. Yeah, we see Roy. He's at home and he's with Penny and he's watching the show. But Roy's not amused as Jimmy had not got permission from the club to appear. And Roy's wondering already. We're only remember 90 minutes into the season if Jimmy is getting too big for his boots.
I wonder if he was. I wonder if he's up for going on Saturday Banana as well.
Yes, he would have been. I tell you
that
what,
would have been quite interesting, couldn't he? But apparently Dickie Bird's on there with David Skew and Malcolm McDonald, so they couldn't get
maybe
on
Roy.
Saturday
Maybe
Banana.
Roy stopped Jimmy for appearing alongside them.
Yeah.
Being too much. 3 personalities from the comic.
Too much.
So the story moves on, where, as Roy's mentioned, it's his birthday, and Roy has received sacks full of birthday cards. And I love this. There's a video of the young Roy and his twin sister Melinda, and they're running around the cardboard cutout of Roy in his fantastic Gowler tracksuit. And Roy's
just say that just in the same picture, you've got Penny dressed up in a
referee's outfit. Yeah. I think that probably wasn't in the script, but David Skew had license to draw what he wanted.
Wonder why she'd have a referee's outfit just lying around. Maybe there's sort of they used it every now and again for
I'm presenting.
anyway.
I'm
Just
not sure I'm
move
liking where
move,
this podcast's
move the
going at
story.
the
Red
moment.
card.
Back
Move
to
the
the
story.
action. Here
Okay,
we
right.
are.
Okay.
So we are also informed that Roy is going to be granted the freedom of Manchester. And can you believe this? I'm not sure I've ever seen this for a footballer. Well, certainly not in England anyway. Roy is driven through the streets of Melchester in an open top car, and the streets are packed. The best way of describing this, it's like a royal wedding, and the car pulls up outside the town hall, and he's greeted there, and he's told that he's got a gift, but he needs to unveil it by hitting a target. And we see Roy at first, he misses the target, but the second one, he hits the target and he unveils a massive statue of himself from the
What
mayor.
what reminds me, when he's driving through Melchester, it reminds me of the opening scenes to Hong Kong Phooey when
Yes,
he's going
yes.
he's going through the streets and there's all that ticker tape
It's
and stuff like that. It's just like
it,
yeah.
is fantastic, actually. And as we've mentioned before in a lot of these features, life moves quickly in the comic book world. And then the following evening, we see Roy playing for Melchester Rovers against Dean's Park. And Rovers are on fire, and now Roy's as well. Roy scores a hat trick. We don't get the full time result, but obviously Rovers have lost one at least 3-0. And at the end of the match, Dean's Park manager Ken Marsh informs Roy that he's got a phone call. Who do you think's at the end of the phone? It is none other than Bobby Robson, England manager.
Dun dun dun.
And I've got to say, fantastic artwork. We see as he is, obviously, no longer with us, but Bobby Robson, as he was there, later to become Sir Bobby. He's got a fantastic picture of the England team on his wall, and he's sporting a blue telephone. And Bobby is asking Roy if he can get tickets for the next match, as he's informing Roy that he wants to look at Roy and Jimmy Slade. When Roy gets back to the dressing room, he tells Jimmy Slade that Robson wants to watch him as well, and the young midfielder's delight. In training before that Saturday's game, though, Roy confronts Jimmy about his TV appearance, only to find out that Slade now has an agent. Jimmy apologizes, but just thinks it's one of those things that must have slipped to his mind, and he won't let it happen. But Roy is forceful, letting Slade know that he needs to get the club's permission for such events. After training, though, we see the young Jimmy Slade, and he's jumping into a VW Golf hatchback, and he screeches out of the players' car park, and we just see a Roy in the background looking on, and you can tell that he's not impressed, as behind him the other Rovers players are saying it's another deal that Jimmy Slade's new agent has put together for him.
Though, I mean, I do love Roy of the Rovers and obviously my race, but Jimmy's just scored all them goals, but there's a bit of jealousy sometimes with
I
Roy.
knew, I
He's
knew, I knew
I
this
know,
was
I
going to
know.
be coming from Bygone.
only
You
just because he
hate him,
says,
but you hate
like
Roy
he's
Race, don't you? You
no,
do. Just be
no.
honest.
He's saying that, a bit too big for his boots, and he's only appeared on a rock show, but Roy's doing a lap of honour because it's his birthday and having a statue unveiled. And then because he's a bit
Well,
annoyed
yeah,
that
but
Bobby
He was
Robson
Bygone,
said he
forced
can
into
play
that.
for
It wasn't
England.
Roy's
as,
idea. That wasn't
as,
Roy's
pe
idea. He was
as
forced into
people
it.
know, when I do features, time is of the essence. But I
Sorry.
think, just to set you straight, what you have to understand here is all of Roy's events are club sanctioned. And
Right then.
that's where young Jimmy's got
You
above
missed.
his, he
Yeah, that
hasn't
was the backstory.
sought the
Yeah.
permission of the club. Come on, Bygone.
Respect.
I thought you were listening. Come on. Well, we move on, and then we've got a packed Mel Park, and they witness Jeff Boycott taking the England manager to his seat. But as the action of the comic moves down to the dressing room, we see General Manager Ben Galloway is informing informing Roy that Jimmy Slade has gone missing and he hasn't turned up. But apparently he left his flat hours ago. Roy quickly turns to Mervyn Wallace, and you can see with a face of disgust and disdain, not impressed. And he tells him that Mervyn is in the team to face Tynecaster. As Rovers come out, the crowd can't believe that Jimmy Slade is not in the team or on the bench. And this makes me, I find this so interesting. The speech bubbles from the crowd. It's an insult. It's the ultimate snub. In fact, one fan saying an absolute insult to Bobby Robson, the England manager.
Such language.
Yes,
wasn't
I
it?
just
Mid
find it. I
80s.
find it amazing that a player not being picked or not turning up. I mean, as if the fans would actually know he hasn't turned up. But it's an insult to the England manager. On to the action, and it's an early chance for Roy. But can you believe, a bit like that pre-season match against Melbourne, he snatches that and actually slices the ball wide. I think you can probably count the times on one hand that this has happened to Roy over the years. Is he feeling the tension with the England manager back in the stands and thought of him getting into the squad?
Yeah.
But Roy suddenly starts to calm down, he settles down, and he starts to show the England manager what he can do. And he hits the rocket. Of course, and it's 1-0 to Rovers. Rovers are on absolute fire. They've started this season like the well-oiled machine that they are. And then all of a sudden, you see Roy. He's heading down to Carl Hunt, and Carl Hunt smashes one into the
That's a
top
great
left.
finish.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Tynecaster keeper. I mean, he's rooted to the spot. He doesn't even see it. Then we see Carl Hunt, a defence splitting ball for Rob Richards, sorry, from Roy, and Rob Richards adds a third before half time. Rovers are on absolute fire, as I say. 5-0 opening day victory. We know of a 3-0 victory at least against Dean Parks, and now they're 3-0 up at half time. As Roy gets to the dressing room, he sees Jimmy Slade. But before Jimmy, and I tell you what, I can feel more intervention coming from Bygone in a minute when he
No.
sees all this. No, there's no problem there, mate. Roy is called. He's just like, you're obviously lucky to be alive. And Jimmy Slade, sorry, is there. He's got his arm bandaged up. He's obviously been in some kind of crash or something. You're obviously lucky to be alive, as I suspected. Well, that's it, Jimmy. It's going to be a long time before you play for Melchester again, let alone England. Allied to that, I mean, he actually just says he's a stupid little idiot and that he's suspended, and he storms out for the second half. And
Wow.
as the players are getting onto the pitch, there's Blackie Gray, and he's trying to calm Roy down, suggesting that he's gone a bit heavy. But Roy's not having any of it. He's with the fans. He's saying, no, it's an insult to Bobby Robson. He's very angry, but he takes his anger out on Tynecaster and he adds a fourth with a fantastic diving header into the goal. In the stands, young Jimmy's trying to explain the accident to Ben Galloway, but on the field, Rovers are on fire, and so is Roy, and he sets up Neville Jones for Melchester, can you believe, to complete another 5-0 victory. Roy getting two, Carl Hunt, Rob Richards, and now Neville Jones. I mean, 3 matches into the season are 2 5-0 victories. After the match, though, Roy, he's showing no compassion for Slade. General Manager Ben Galloway suggests that Roy should try and talk to Slade. Roy's riposte, he'd say anything to get himself out of this mess. Roy reads the riot act to Slade. Think of the damage to your own career. I've got to apologise to Bobby Robson and tell him that one of our brightest England prospects missed the match because he drove into someone's garden. I mean, ridiculous from Jimmy Slade. Even I'll say that. I'm not sure Bygone's there, but he's decided to keep silent on this
I'll
one now.
keep silent because I know there's a time is an issue, but there's many
Go for it.
times where Roy has been kidnapped at half time, missed games. Ben Galloway never treated him like that. He just said, "Get out, play the second half, and we'll deal with it." He's
It's
not
true.
listening to Ben here.
I think he went. I think he's. You know what? I'm a huge Roy fan, but I think he's gone a little bit OTT there
He might be stressed
without
about
understanding
something.
the other side, the full
Yeah,
context. You know, he
it's
just slaughtered him. I
it's
think it's
very
harsh.
interesting. I mean, back to there's Jimmy. He's even got a headband on, and he's
Yeah.
saying to Roy, "It wasn't my fault. You've got to believe that, Roy. Go home, lad. I don't want to set eyes on you for at least 2 weeks. They cannot be firmer than that." I mean, one thing I will say, it's definitely strong management from Roy.
It is. Well, you can't. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But we're informed that Roy is made aware that Robson was impressed with his performance and that he will be in touch. Next, the story takes an interesting turn as we see Rovers are away to second division Rowton in the Milk Cup. And I do really like this. We're informed, we haven't seen this action, but Rovers won the first leg 3-1 at Mel Park. And as we're getting ready, as the players are getting ready to face Rowton on their tiny ground and waiting for Roy is centre-back Roger Harper, rated to be a future England player and not a fan of Roy. I find this interesting. They're a second division team, and there's talk of this defender, Roger Harper, being in the England squad. Now, I know maybe Steve Ball in 1990, but I don't think there was that many second division players that made the England squad at that time. I mean, maybe I do sort of remember Brooking and that, but anyway.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. And the West Ham because they're a bit of
yeah.
a yo-yo, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
late 80s,
Melchester, as I said, are in great
70s.
form,
Yeah.
and as we know, they're already 3-1 up, and they're straight on the attack. And Neville Jones is centering for Roy, but Roger Harper had made it a personal mission to stop Roy Race, and he gets in there. It wasn't long before the two would clash again. I must admit, I think I might have missed that. I think actually Rovers did knock one in there, but Harper's all over Roy, and he's tackling Roy tough, and he's breaking up an attack, and Roy so immediately sort of oh God, I've lost my track here. Soon after, Harper showed why he's in the reckoning for the England sector setup, intercepting a Rovers attack and getting Roughton on the move, and in fact himself moving into the penalty area and getting on the end of a cross, forcing a great save from Charlie Carter. But there's really an on the field duel, and they're having words as well on the pitch, and Harper's making Roy aware that it's that a lot of the England players might not be too impressed with the things that he said about the squad. But back
Oh,
onto the action on the field, and now we see Roy. He does an amazing dummy on Harper, and he shoots past the Roughton goalkeeper, but Harper slides in to knock the ball wide and scoops it off the goal line. And shortly after that action, the halftime whistle sounded, and as the players leave the field, the crowd was saying it's been a battle of giants and suggesting that Robson should put both in the squad. And again, it just makes me laugh that we hadn't seen any action from the first leg, so we know nothing of this
yeah.
defender, Roger Harper.
No, I know.
And as I say, so in the tunnel though, Roy is once more treated to a mouthful from Harper, and he said, "Why should Roy Race, be able to play in the past because of the England setup? The things that he said. He's really
Mm.
given a mouthful to him, and he's like, I don't think that the rest of the team would be happy about you being into the squad. You're a player that said we want players that want to play for England." And the Roughton manager apologises to Roy for the outburst, but Roy said not to worry, as there could be some truth in it. At half time, though, Roy shocks the Rovers team as he tells Kenny Logan to get changed and to replace him, and Roy wouldn't be coming out in the second half. He said he'd got a slight knock and didn't want to take any chances. The Rovers players, you can see, are somewhat sceptical, but the second half is dealt with in just 3 panels. We see Harper heading clear, but Logan converting a Rob Richards cross for a victory for Rovers. And on aggregate, it's Roughton 1 and Melchester 5. As I say, it's a stunning, all the off-field activities with Roy and England and Jimmy Slade, but on the field, Rovers are on absolute fire. And full-time whistle goes. Roy tells the players to get off the pitch quick after the final whistle, and he refuses to comment to the press as they leave about an on-field feud. He's questioned about an on-field feud with Harper, but he refuses to answer any questions. When he gets home, Penny told him that there's 2 messages, one from a Mr. Hillier, suggesting Roy is wrong to suspend Slade. And Roy dismisses this to Penny, saying he can mind his own business. I mean, I have no idea who this Mr. Hillier is, actually. The second call was from Bobby Robson, and he wants Roy to call him before he releases his final list of players to the press. We see Royce then in the morning. Roy wakes up and he snaps at the twins at the breakfast table as they're watching a news broadcast suggesting that Robson is going to select Roy. At training, Taffy Morgan notices he's in a mood as he walks onto the pitch, and then we see a tough challenge on Mervyn Wallace. Then he has a go at Neville Jones after Jones has missed a header, and then he off the pitch after having words with Neville Jones, and he says leaving Taffy to take the last 20 minutes of training. When the players come in, Roy has pinned up the team sheet for the next round of the Milk Cup against Kings Bay. When the players inquire about his chat with Robson, Roy says they will have to read the papers. We see the fans reading out the squad: Neville Jones, Charlie Carter and Carl Hunt, alongside Kings Bay striker Stan Draper and Roger Harper, but no Roy. And there's the fans reading, we see the fans reading the newspapers, and they're incredulous that Roy's been left out of the squad. But we move on to this more Milk Cup action. It's Melchester Rovers at home to Kings Bay in the 3rd round. The crowd speculating about the England selection and how can Roy, they're saying he's the best striker in the country, but then Roy did turn down the chance in the past and he has been critical. So there's a lot of sort of conspiracy theories. Did Robson not pick him, or has Roy actually declined to play for England? The
Yeah.
match kicks off with Roy showing his skill when he's moving past the Kings Bay defence, and he fires just over under pressure from a Kings Bay defender. Then we see the player who many felt has taken Roy's place in the squad, Kings Bay's Stan Draper. He beats two Rovers players and he moves past Roy and he almost hands him off. His hands on Roy's chest, almost in like a rugby style action. I would say kind of similar if you remember how Paul Gascoigne often would dribble
Oh
past
yeah.
defenders.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's definitely put his hand there. And then he fires home. So it's 1-0 Kings Bay. But yes, it's one of those magnificent comic book moments. The referee's whistle's gone and he's going to disallow the goal for a foul on Roy. Stan Draper lets Roy know his thoughts on it. Roy, you wouldn't have caused any bother in the England dressing room. Seems you're a big hero to everyone these days, even referees. And Draper obviously just feels a bit like Bygone, that Roy's flavour of the month and can do no wrong in everybody's eyes. But some people know better. From the resulting free kick, though, Rovers showed they're in great form as Carl Hunt sends a free kick upfield, and it's a fantastic dummy by Rob Richards. He takes two Kings Bay defenders out of the play, and the ball lands to Roy, who hits a first-time rocket goal, 1-0 Rovers. This amazing play on field continues. You can see, though, that Draper's really incensed that Rovers should take the lead from the free kick after his goal being disallowed. And from that moment, he's just looking for Roy everywhere on the pitch. And on the action, we see Rovers have got a throw in, but Draper's elbowing Roy in the chest off the ball. Then we see Roy's on the ball and Draper comes in with a massive shoulder barge to take the ball off of him, dumps Roy onto the ground. But Roy is remaining calm throughout all of this action. And then late in the game, Neville Jones, into the second half, still 1-0. Neville Jones takes a short corner to Roy. Draper steams in, but Roy knows and he's too quick and he moves. But Draper flies into the challenge, studs in on Roy, but it looks as if Draper is down injured on the turf. Roy seems to be okay, but Draper is on the turf and he's going to have to be stretchered off. The Kings Bay players are now lining up and they're saying, Roy, can you believe this? You've probably ruined his chances of playing for England. And they're really having a go at Roy. But then the Kings Bay captain steps in and he says it was Stan who tackled Roy. He injured himself. The captain apologises and says to the ref that the ref has awarded, and I like this terminology, a bounce up. Not a drop ball, a bounce up. I can't say that I've ever remember it being referred to as that. But he says that the ref has awarded a bounce up, indicating that he doesn't consider that Roy fouled Draper, which is good enough for him. And then later on, the action moves on and we see Roy once again on the score sheet, a fantastic header for Rovers to complete a 2-0 victory and advance to the next round of the Milk Cup. It's as I say, the on-field form from Rovers this season, surely they're going to do something special this season. After the final whistle, though, Roy is very keen to find out how Draper is, but he's informed by the Bay manager, Terry Lake, it is a badly sprained ankle and that Draper will miss the England game and probably a few games more after that. It's very interesting, though. The Kings Bay manager then says, don't blame yourself, Roy. I'm surprised Bobby Robson picked him anyway. Stan's always been a bit of a hothead.
Cheers.
Then next we see, and I find this amazing as well, Roy's actually asking Jeff Boycott, the club chairman, how to contact the England manager. I would have thought Roy would know better than Jeff, but there you go. And then we see Roy's on the phone, and as he comes off the phone in a public box with the Melchester players looking on, he shakes Jeff by
they
the
were having
hand.
a beer, aren't they? They were having diving into the beer there.
Cheeky drink behind old Blackie Gray and Neville Jones.
They're hedgehog proud, aren't they? There.
Yeah, exactly. And the following day, we see that the papers confirm that Roy is in the England squad replacing Draper. A development which has merely fueled the speculation, was Bobby Robson forced to call up the Melchester striker because of the injury to Draper? Or has Roy, assuming that he rejected the chance to play for England when first approached, suffered a change of heart and offered his services? Only Roy Race and Bobby Robson know the answer. And that is the end of part one of this season review. In the next part, I find this quite interesting. We will start with issue the 24th of November. We've seen Rovers smashing teams 5-0 in the league and through 2 rounds of the Milk Cup, and Roy back in the England fold, but without a mention of a Cup Winners' Cup match. And I checked the real football season that season, and I remember we will go to the next issue, November the 24th. By
Yeah.
November 24th, in the real football season that season, the first and second rounds of the Cup Winners' Cup had already been completed, with the clubs waiting for March and the quarterfinals of the competition. But I guess that's the difficulty of trying to cover a football season in 4 pages a week in a comic, right?
Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
is it is hard with the old timing. That was brilliant.
yeah,
That's
that's it.
brilliant tangent,
Whew.
superb stuff.
Yeah, that's meant to
Fantastic.
be presented, but I'm going to take a bit of a breath there. But yeah, sorry there, Neil. As I said, I think I've kind of gone a little bit over my allotted
No, it's
20
really, I
minutes that
loved
we
it.
thought. But
No, you
yeah,
really brought passion to it. It was great. I really enjoyed listening to that.
cheers.
Yeah.
We are definitely, though, I want to do a special interview with you and really, I think we're going to get you on the psychiatrist couch and really deep dive into your thoughts about Roy.
It's
I'm
just
not sure if it will be too controversial, though.
honest to God, he's just that last the part that you mentioned before. Roy phones Bobby Robson up to. Oh, it should be the other way around. But how
Yeah,
does Roy know he's a second choice? He might have been the third or fourth choice striker.
yeah, it's interesting, right?
He was already
It is
told
interesting.
Blackpool strikers the
Yeah.
second top goal scorer last year. Why is he not going to be
Yeah.
replacing him in the squad?
Yeah, he's
But
interesting. I mean, as you say, I mean, well, my understanding in real football, a player pulls out through injury or whatever else, the manager then gets on the phone and
yeah,
speaks to the player, not the other player. Says, "Oh, by the way, boss, I am actually I'm available."
yeah. And he's got something against referees, so something's struck a chord with Penny wearing that outfit. Something's really upset him since then. It's just
Uh, I tell you what, Bygone, we're going to do it. We've got to do an episode on this. This is classic
I
Bygone
don't know what
Berrigan.
Roy's done to me in the past. It's gonna end up coming out.
Bergen on the
No,
couch.
no. I tell you
Yeah.
what, actually, though, it is interesting, and then all joking aside, I think it is something that we could do because there, as you say, there are elements where I mean, I was going through my comics today, and there's a front cover with Park Soon in the air celebrating a goal, and Roy's kind of down on his haunches, and he's looking up at Park Soon, and the headlines are like a Rovers
Oh,
have
I
a new
remember that
hero,
one.
and Roy does look a bit, and there's Bruce Pancho Miller in the background as well, and you kind of think, well, hold on a minute, Roy, you're meant to be everything that's good for Melchester, right? So,
Well,
Yeah,
many you can say, he's a troubled genius, isn't he, really? And everyone's got
yeah,
an ego of a certain size,
yeah,
so clearly Roy did. He did
mm,
have an ego, didn't he?
he
Every now and
he
again.
did, he certainly
Yeah.
did.
it is part of the storyline, isn't it? Because that's why they've reinvented Jimmy Slade as young Jimmy Slade because he was causing trouble.
Oh,
But they've had other young players coming into the team like Neville Jones, Steve
mm,
Naylor. They could have took that. It could have been Neville Jones being a young troublemaker, or
yeah,
they had
yeah,
Rob.
yeah,
Obviously the season before it was Rob Richards. So
mm,
there was other players, but yeah, it's really
yeah, it's
I really
comforting.
enjoyed that. That it was really good.
Cheers. Well, I'm pleased you said that because I hope you're feeling okay. I know you're suffering a little bit, just for listeners, you might have heard he's suffering a little bit of a cold there. But
Yeah.
he's soldiering on through. And it is actually over to you now, Bygone, for your Roy of the Rovers novel.
Hello. Sorry if I keep coughing. I've just developed a bit of a cold. It's not COVID. I've had my jab, so it should be that. Yeah, so this is just going to be a quick feature now. It's just something quirky that I picked up in my collection many years ago, and it's actually a Roy the Rovers novel, which was released in 1977, and it's a small like handbook of a story, and it's a worded story of Roy the Rovers, and it's wrote by somebody called James Hart and published by a company called New English Library.
Oh, wow.
Um, I've never ever. It's very rare that I've ever seen a copy of this, and I think the first time I ever saw a copy, I was about 10 years old, and it was at the school. It was in the school library, and then I found a copy on a
I was just
cabinet.
going to say, and is that what you've got in your hand, having a go at Roy, and then you
Shouldn't you,
do?
shouldn't you take shouldn't you take it back by now? That's gonna
Let's
cost
see,
you a
the primary
fortune.
school due back 1986. No, it's actually from a car boot sale. I think I picked it up like 25p.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's quite unique because I don't think they released any more of these type of books in
Mm.
from that period. Um, but this is like it's just a small book. I think there's only 125 pages. And when I was looking through it, because I'm not a big fan of worded stories of Roy the Rovers for some
Mm.
reason, even though I love reading and I
Sorry,
love
sorry,
comics.
Bygone. I love it when you say that. Your last feature was the brilliant feature when you did the
Oh,
worded story from the annual with us, the
yeah,
cup tie with
yeah,
Safest Hands of Soccer. It's
which I really
fantastic.
enjoyed. That's why I picked this book up because I enjoyed that. I knew I had it in my collection, so I thought I'm going to give it a read. I have read the first four chapters of it, which it is really good. But it seems to cover a Cup Winners' Cups, European Cup Winners' Cup run, uh, which after discussing with Matt, he's managed to find out it's from 1966-67 storyline, which actually featured in the Tiger comic.
Mm.
So it seems that James Hart had the task of abridging this into a book form. So I've never read that story from them Tiger comics except for the playing
No.
years.
Mm.
Um, and it does feature the stories that are in this book. The games that they play are in the playing years, so obviously it has
Interesting.
come from that. As you flick through the book, the first page is it seems like it's not Roy. It's not Roy in the front cover. If anybody can see it, there's an
Mm.
inset picture of Roy, but Roy is not on
Yeah.
the front cover. It's just a random team playing a game.
Mm.
But again, Matt has done some digging and he's managed to find this. Is that right, Matt? You were saying you found this on the comics.
Yeah, yeah. So I was flicking through. I mean, because Neil, yeah, you said you were going to do this, and so
Yeah.
I was doing a bit of research, just thinking it looked like. So on the cover, you got a picture of front of face of Roy, and that does look like it looked around 66, 67, 68, that kind of era. And so I went back through some digital copies I've got, and yeah, so it's Joe Colquhoun is the artist. But what's really interesting, and I mean, for if people watching us on YouTube and just for listeners' sake, we've got the actual cover of the book up on the screen, so you can see it in color. Um, but the actual cover is made up of two illustrations, if you like, from the actual story in 66, 67. So I'm now going to
Oh, okay.
share the other pictures. So I'll stop sharing that one
Mm.
and I'll share uh, this one, which is the kind of background,
Oh, yeah, that's
if you
interesting. Yeah.
like, that's actually from the 8th of October 1966.
Wow.
And Roy's actually in that. And then also, if I stop sharing that and I'll share the other picture, which is this one, what you've got
Yeah.
what you've got
Yeah.
here is
Yeah.
actually Tony
Tony
Storm,
Stark.
Mm. Mm.
who's the actual main character in the foreground on the cover, and that's from the 18th of February 1967. So they've
I,
kind of merged two
Spliced them together.
illustrations, yeah, and they've spliced them together, and they've colorized them into different colors because no, it's not even Melchester colors either.
No.
I've got to say, I mean, we're all kind of familiar with well, whether you can use it or not, like Photoshop and this. But it's amazing to think of what they could do back then because they've obviously, as you say, copied these two pictures. But I'm always interested, and I think we've asked David Skew and Barry when they've been on. But of course, then they've obviously coloured, they've then managed to colour the artwork as well. Because my understanding is that that artwork would have been submitted just as
Black and
you know,
white.
black and white pencil pen drawings, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because well, it was never color in
Mm.
apart from cover stories,
Yeah.
Roy of the Rovers story in Tiger
But
until the
it's just
70s.
Mm.
it's a story about Roy of the Rovers, and it discusses on the back that they've just won the FA Cup with the help of Roy Race's golden boots and the dedicated manager Ben Galloway, and now they're on for a glittering prize of the European Cup Winners' Cup. So you think on the front it would have had this, a picture of Roy Melchester maybe with the FA Cup or
Yeah.
something like that. Not just a
Yeah.
random picture that doesn't contain any
Mm.
part of Melchester.
Yeah.
And you said Neil that it's been approved by copyright approved by
Yeah,
IPC, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
you go inside, because that's another thing I was thinking. Is that because they've not got the full copyright, for Roy of the Rovers or something? But inside they have got a copyright by IPC magazines, 1977. So it's a story from 1966-67, but released in 1977, which
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just I don't know. I
That's
mean, they've had other
interesting.
great storylines, haven't they, in between that? It's just
Mm.
wonder why they picked this one.
I,
But
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Without, I mean, I might message Barry at some point just ask him if he knew or recalls anything from that.
yeah,
But
but it's
it's interesting.
it is
It is
interesting, just
interesting. Yeah.
different
Mm.
things. And just for a simple book, Roy of the
Yeah.
Rovers, and it's got so many interesting questions to come from it, if you know what I
I've,
mean.
I, what really intrigues me is I was like when you first mentioned it, I had kind of seen it on the odd occasion on eBay and stuff, but I kind of concentrate, although it's mentioned all the time about my collection, I concentrate on the comics more. I mean, I haven't really got, I don't think, a complete, you know, annuals and all the summer specials and stuff. So things like that I've stayed away from. But I'm not that familiar with it. But it's what when Matt's done his research to then find out that it's a novel, but it is actually based on a story that appeared in Tiger originally. It's
Yeah,
really interesting. Like you said, and 10 years later as well. It's yeah,
yeah.
really intriguing.
It's very random, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what was
Yeah.
amazing, Neil, was, I mean, tell a story about on the Facebook site. That was amazing as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
like we discussed, like when we discuss about what we were going to plan to read about on the when we were recording the podcast. So I'd just discovered this book in my loft, in my collection, and I thought, right, that'll be interesting to cover. And then the very same day when I said I'm going to cover it in our group chat, it was shared on one of the Facebook Row the Rovers 40 years group that Trevor Melvin had
I know.
Unbelievable.
had
Amazing.
said about the book, and and I was like, how did he read my mind? Because I'm
Right.
worried now because I've thought about other things since then, and he may have
I was going to say, do you
come
know
early.
what, Trevor? It's not just the feedback. Obviously, your weight and power goes far beyond.
I know it was just honest to God, it was so
He has many
uncanny.
powers.
Mm.
It was, but as it's going back to the book again, it's I've read the first four chapters, and it is broken into chapters, and each storyline is as they're going through each step of the Cup Winners' Cup. And what I find intriguing is right at the beginning, they've played a few pre-season friendly games, and then Ben has said that he's going to put the team in the preliminary round of the Cup Winners' Cup. Like as
Oh,
if you have a choice. I don't know if
Ah,
that worked like that. He said because we need extra games, I'm going to put us in the preliminary round. So he puts them in the preliminary. I didn't know if that was a thing that you
it might
could
have been
say
in the
when you went to play.
60s.
it might have
It
been
might, I don't
back
know.
then, and some
Yeah,
of
that's
the
something
yeah, the early. I
if
mean, one of
any
my
listeners
annoyances
know.
about the early European competitions is Arsenal are only ever down now for winning two European trophies or something because they won the Fairs Cup. But I never
Yeah.
realised all those years ago the
Wait,
Fairs Cup wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't a UEFA competition.
right?
Oh,
And so
really?
now Leeds United, Newcastle, and some obviously
Well,
Italian teams and other teams, it doesn't go down as a European trophy. And it
that's
really, really
shocking.
annoys me.
Yeah, I bet it
Yeah.
annoys the teams as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I thought the Fairs Cup became the UEFA Cup.
It
That was
did,
yeah, I
but
just
then,
my right,
but all the winners
because it wasn't
before it
official.
became the UEFA Cup. So it was initially it was the Intercity Fairs Cup,
Oh
and then
yeah,
it
yeah,
became
yeah,
the
yeah.
Fairs Cup. And it's interesting because I tried to do my research. Sorry, listener, as my name tangent.
yeah,
I have my match attacks cards.
Yeah.
yeah.
So then the match attacks one season there was the badges had the Euro
Ah,
pictures of the European trophies and how many times the clubs had won it. And there was
yeah.
the picture of the UEFA Cup and Arsenal had never won it. And I was like, I know that Arsenal have won the UEFA Cup. And that's when I looked into it. And the initial Intercity Fairs Cup was in actual fact that a fair used to be held around Europe and it was so like Birmingham won it, but it was like a Birmingham select team and not necessarily Birmingham City and a
Ah,
Barcelona team,
I
but
never knew
players
this.
from other clubs
Huh?
originally. So I kind of understand that. Then it got more formulated where like a city would say, right, Arsenal represent or Birmingham represent Birmingham City represent Birmingham
Mm.
and England. But then it did when it was the Fairs Cup. It was a proper qualifying and all the clubs took place. But it was, I believe, it was actually a FIFA, can you believe, a sanctioned competition and not UEFA.
Oh,
Then it became the UEFA Cup. But as I say, because of that, all the teams that won the Fairs Cup and Intercity Fairs Cup, they no longer have, can't have the little badges or whatever by their name, and they're not credited with a European trophy anymore.
Well, that
yeah.
seems a bit pedantic, doesn't it, really? I mean, that's a bit off.
Well, as a fan of one of those clubs who we might have a rich history in English football, but our European history isn't as great. Yes, it rankles.
Yeah. Going back to the book.
Please, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
As
mate,
Paul
sorry.
cries.
Yeah. I'll be back shortly. I'm
He
just
just
going to
needs a
leave.
moment.
I'm just going to
I
leave the
consider
studio
it a
for a minute.
European trophy, Paul.
Ah,
I
thanks,
consider it.
Bygone. Thanks.
It's all right. I don't know if Roy would. Roy would disagree somewhere with me, I should imagine. But yeah, it's as I say, if anybody does pick up a copy, it is a good read up to now for the 4 chapters I've read, and I've skimmed through the rest. But it is interjected with pictures from, I should imagine it's from the comic.
It
Um,
is.
on there,
Mm.
yeah. The issue I've got, someone's took time to colour one of the pictures in with a Bic pen, which is nice because
Yeah, it's always the way, isn't it?
they've put Rovers in blue, so anyway. But yeah, all the way through it's interjected, and there is a picture just towards the back because I think during the final, I think it's at Hampden, if I'm not mistaken, if I
Yeah,
remember.
it is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
And one of
yeah.
the banners comes loose, one of the flags, and goes over the crowd, and that's featured in here as well. So yeah, so I think they've, like I say, they've just abridged the story from the season into this book, which I personally think it's really hard to do that because when I've reviewed stories on here for the listeners, it's you when you read a comic, it's just a page gone. But when you're detailing it, you're trying to fit so much in the background, what the crowd are doing, and different things like that. So it does come longer. So I think James Hart at the moment has done a really good job of this. Um, Searching his name, he was an author of different other books, but this seems to be the only sport book that I can find that he did do. So he didn't do anything like for any other comics, like Eagle, like Dan Dare, or
Yeah.
anything similar. So as I say, I'm really enjoying it at the moment. And I just thought if anybody has got any other unique books out there, if they, can recommend it in the groups that we can see if we can find any more different books. And it would have been a bargain, I think, for 1977. It was only 60p in the UK. Australia $1.75, Canada 1.85, and New Zealand $2. So it's really, I don't know how them prices increase with our friends of the show from Australia and things like that. If that was a bargain in them days, but yeah, as I say, I'm really enjoying this booklet up to now. This book up to now, and that's it. It is all in black and white as well. It's not in color, like I say, or anything like that.
Yeah.
But all the pictures, they're not like reproduction pictures. They are all, I think, the original Joe. I struggle to say his second name.
Joe
Cockle.
Cohen, yeah.
Yeah. They are his
Mm.
his work. But that's it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's something different. It's not a comic strip, but it's just
Mm.
bizarre how it was a 1966-67 season released in 1977 and doesn't feature any of the main players on the front cover in the action.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
No, no, brilliant. Well, cheers, Bygone. Brilliant. Just
Okay.
adding on that, I've kind of done a little bit of quick research, but can't really get an answer. All I can tell you in the real 66-67 European Cup Winners' Cup, there was a preliminary round, but it was only one match. But it doesn't tell us why the format or why those two teams were in that round. So it's interesting. And just quickly, as Neil's asked our listeners, just to say that we were discussing this before the show, and we were aware of two other novels of Roy the Rovers books, and they're Come On You Reds and The Shootout. The Shootout's by Scott Goodall and Come On You Reds by Tom Tully. But these were both released at the end of when the comic stopped. And they were kind of advertised in the last comic, but I'm not aware of, apart from obviously the reboot of Rebellion, of any actual novels like that book. So it would be interesting to find out if there were any others of like such gems that Neil's uncovered there, and of course, obviously, friend of the show, Melvin.
It says here, it says just to confirm on page 8, Ben Galloway states, I'm applying for a game in the preliminary round. He told the team in the dressing room, we've got plenty of tough league games ahead, but I don't plan on changing our present team. So I'll be sending the names in plus some reserves. It's just strange that
Interesting. Yeah.
I've got a tough season ahead, but I'm going to put you in the preliminary round. I wonder if it must have been one of, they must have required you required a team to enter it or something. I
Do you,
don't know.
sorry, do you know what? And this is just amazing. As you've said that, and I've just noticed that season there was a preliminary round, right? And Standard Liège beat Valor, but then in the first round, Borussia Dortmund got a bye, so there was no need for a preliminary round.
No, yeah, yeah. This little
Football
book,
was weird back in the day, right?
this
It
little
was.
book's brought out so much intrigue. It's
Yeah.
so many
That
questions.
just because you just as you saying that, I've just noticed that. Sorry, and that's just really intrigued me. So you had a preliminary round, but in actual fact, there were enough teams just to have had a first round proper and gone on from that. By having a preliminary round, a team got a bye.
It's weird, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic stuff, Neil. Oh, I feel though that you've ended up, unfortunately, we try to stay with the comic football book world, but I tell you what, you're brilliant. You've finished that with questions on are there other gems like that out there that we're not aware of?
Yeah.
And also now, I mean, I want to research the real 1966-67 Cup Winners' Cup and find out what the hell was going on. Oh,
Brilliant.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, all I can say, Matt, is follow that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, well, brilliant stuff. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention, Neil. Right, okay. Now we're moving on to back to the safest hands in soccer. So I'm going to share my screen with the guys here, and right. So can you see that?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So this is from the 1978 Roy of the Rovers annual, one of my favourite annuals. And it's just 6 pages, so it's not a long story, but I really like this story. It's quite a tragic story, but yeah, I just love it. So we got Gordon Stewart, and he's talking to the readers. Hi there, readers. My name's Gordon Stewart, and I play in goal for Second Division Tynefield City. Stopping awkward spinning shots is now a speciality of mine, thanks to our 17-year-old junior team manager, who is the youngest in the Football League. Let me tell you how it came about. So we have some pictures here of Gordon in goal. And he says, it all began one Saturday 2 years ago when we were playing an ordinary league match and I was being kept busy. It's like, oh, good save, Gordon, the crowd are saying. Oh, what a keeper. He's got the safest hands in soccer. And he's got his whole group of friends, fans there.
Yeah, it's
And
got his fan base.
with banners saying, the golden goalie, he's the greatest. Gordon, he saves the city. And somebody's talking to him. I don't know who's talking to him. It might be somebody, it may be us. I don't know, or a reporter saying like, who are that lot, Gordon? Your specially hired fan club. And he says they come from the Taxford Youth Club, where I do a spot of coaching every week. Then minutes later, you see him making another great save. I love the artwork in Save His Hands in Soccer. It was just brilliant, especially when he made a save. It seemed to like explode off of him when
Yeah,
he pushes the
yeah.
ball over the bar. And so he's making the saves. And then after the match, and Tynefield win 2-0. He's chatting to the crowd and they're saying, oh, can I have your autograph and sign here? You were great today. And someone says, don't forget the Taxford Club fete tomorrow, Gordon. And it's a girl. And he goes, don't worry, sweetie.
Oh, you
Nice one.
smoothie, Gordon. You
Yeah, nice
smoothie.
one. Don't worry, sweetie. Oh, I can't wait to let everyone take pot shots at me for 10 pence a time. 10 pence a time. It's all in a good
Wow.
cause. So we flash to the fete. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's the shooting gallery. You've got a big sign that says Gordon Stewart, Tynefield's goalkeeper, 10 pence a shot or 6 for 50p. Someone goes, I'm having a go at that. It's not every day you can try your luck against Gordon Stewart. Someone said, me too, quick. They're starting to queue up. And so there he goes. And he's all sorts, all shapes and sizes are taking shots at him. Young, old, fat, thin, soccer fans of all ages. And they all try, and nobody can get past him. Nobody can get past him.
Of course not. Of course not.
Of course not. Well, he's the safest hand in soccer. Goes
Yeah, of
without saying,
course.
doesn't it?
Mm.
Um, then there's a couple of the organisers talking. They go, Gordon's doing a fantastic job. He must be shattered, but I can't see anyone beating him this afternoon. And and they go, yeah, and all this money is filling up the club funds a treat. All those 10p's.
Yeah.
We'll have to take up the prizes home again at this rate. So clearly, there's prizes to win if you go in. But then all of a sudden, the organisers were not prepared for what happened next because at that moment, a dark-haired youngster was paying his money. 50p worth, please. And the girl goes, oh, Coy, you're being optimistic. I can only say good luck because everyone else has failed. And so the last panel on the page, and they do this really well, you've got the youngster he steps up, places the ball with infinite care, ran up, and he strikes it.
I got to
Gordon
say,
goes,
that
go on.
artwork on that is fantastic as the way it's left his boot there.
That's brilliant. There's something about the way when he strikes it, or as though torta, when they hit the ball, it just explodes. It's just brilliant.
I think the artwork throughout this story is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Some of it is brilliant. Some of the scenes are, really thought-provoking. So anyway, he dives to make the save, but at the last minute, it just swerves, goes in, and
Wow.
and even Gordon's going, huh? He's like, huh? What happened there? And it's like, and it was some onlookers are going, the lad scored. Gordon Stewart's been beaten at last. It was almost like a googly at cricket. Did you see the flight of the ball? It seemed to do funny things in the air. Anyway, the kid hits the second shot, and it's the same but different. But he's only done it again. This one it swerves away from Gordon. He puts a wicked spin in it. It's gone in. Now Gordon's really thinking this through, and he got this close-up shot of Gordon. He's going, this kid is almost performing some sort of magic on the ball, but no way is he going to beat me again. That's for sure. Well, famous last words, because he steps up and he just smacks it this time. There's no bend on it or anything.
Yeah.
And it says it's hit with such pulverizing force that Gordon could only expected it. He had only expected in the professional ranks. And the crowd are going, "What a shot! Gordon didn't even see it." By now, there's a big crowd forming around this, and they're kind of standing around. And so I'm going, "What's going on?" Some unknown kid's beating the City goalkeeper every time. Surely not. Stewart's a professional. I've got to see it. Gordon hates to let goals in against anybody. I've got to see this. He's really thinking this through now. So we've got a thought bubble there for Gordon. He's got, I've got it at last. He leans left when he shoots right, and right when he shoots left. And the outside of his foot makes the ball dip, while the inside makes it swerve. And then he gets it. He saves the next one. Well done, Gordon. Catches it as well. Doesn't just save it. He catches it. No fisting away or palming away. None of this namby-pamby.
Modern day
goalkeepers.
Yeah.
He holds on to it. No gloves. No gloves either.
Oh, no, yeah. Crikey, yeah. I just noticed that.
So he saves something. So the mystery boy had collected his 5 prizes because he's won all these prizes. He's got like a little trophy there, a truck and a doll. So Gordon goes, "Hey, young fella, it's not every day I let in 5 goals. I want to congratulate you. What's your name?" He goes, "Oh, it's Lenny Blake." "Well, listen to me, Lenny. You've got a very special sort of talent, one that shouldn't be wasted. Can you come down to the Tynefield Stadium for a trial in the morning? I know my manager, Mike Williams, would like to see you." "Okay, Gordon, if you think I should." So anyway, then Gordon sees Lenny, and Lenny's giving the prizes away, and he goes, "Oh, a couple of kids. They look like his brother and sister. He must have been winning the prizes especially for them. So they've been on the swings whilst he's been in the shooting gallery." Anyway, the story moves on. Following morning, and he's talking to the boss, Mike Williams. "This is Gordon. Boss, I don't know whether you've heard already, but I reckon I've made the find of the century. I've asked a lad named Lenny Blake down for a trial. He's out of this world." "Is that so? Well, I always want to see the football genius, especially on a Monday morning. It starts the week off right. So clearly you can tell Mike's thinking,
Yes,
here we go.
Here we go.
I've heard this before. There's another
before.
Sammy Spangler.
Yeah.
So anyway, then he turns up and he's got Borough kit on. So it's looking a bit, a bit dishevelled, and it's too big for him. And so they go, well, it's not that this is Mike. He said, it's not that I ever doubt a goalkeeper's judgment, Gordon, but I'll make up my mind when I've seen him play. He can join in our practice game." "All right, boss, but you wait." Anyway, the practice game starts, and suddenly Lenny's got the ball, and he's just, he twists past one, he dummies past another, and he goes, "Oh, hey, Terry," this is Mike. "Hey, Terry, get a load of that. Maybe Gordon wasn't talking through the back of his goalkeeper's cap after all. What ball control." And suddenly, well, he suddenly he dribbles through the whole of the Tyneside City first team without even seeming to try, and they're going on the sidelines. They're going, it's impossible. I tell you, it can't simply be happening. And it's like, I'd believe you, Mike, if I wasn't watching myself. The kid's a flaming marvel, and then he finishes the run off with a superb shot, hit with perfection, and Gordon Stewart is just clutching in the air, and it's straight in the top corner. And yeah, so you got Mike Williams there and the coach going, phew, I hope no one from the press is here. We'd never live it down. And the coach Terry's going, the boy's dynamite, Mike. Any league club will give anything to get their hands on him. Lucky Gordon spotted him first. So anyway, straight away they're going, oh, this. So they've had a practice match. What, they played 10 minutes, and they're
Yeah,
going to get the paper. They're signing him straight away. It's, they're like, I'll get all the papers
got to.
prepared. I'll be down to see your parents this evening, Lenny. You'll be apprentice professional for Tyneside City before you know it. Gosh, thanks, Mr. Williams. And then Gordon's like, so Lenny's there, and he's got his brother and sister, his young brother and sister with him. So Gordon says, "Can I give you and the kids a lift home, Lenny?" And then he's like, "Not just now, Gordon. We'll walk. I need time to think straight. Everything's happened so fast. My head's in a whirl." So Gordon just goes to get in the car. Then suddenly, he hears a tire burst on a passing car, and then suddenly he's looking and he's going, "No, no, Lenny and the kids. That car's heading straight for them." And you can see Lenny walking down the pavement with his brother and sister. And you're like, "Oh my God!" And the car's speeding towards Lenny. And then you see in the next frame, suddenly everything happened in a split second. Typically, Lenny Blake did not hesitate. His brother and sister came first. He pushes them out of the way and dives. But the next two frames are just really haunting. I can remember reading this I would have been 8 or 9.
Mm.
Then you got Lenny crushed up against the brick
Yeah,
wall, and it's like, and the caption says, "For Lenny himself, it was too late."
Wow.
And you're thinking, Christ, dead. It's like, and then you've
mm.
got the next one. You've got Gordon with his collars upturned, and he's got like leaves blown in the wind. He's looking really ashen faced, and in the bubble he says, "Operation followed operation, but all to no avail. Lenny Blake's soccer career was over before it had even begun, and he could have been one of the greatest players the game has ever seen." It's like, wow.
Mm.
But then the last two panels, then we've got, but his ability, soccer knowledge, and love of kids stood him in good stead. Then he was eventually put in charge of the Tynefield Juniors with great success. So now you've got this picture there, and you've got Lenny with a cane, and got Tynefield Juniors holding up a trophy, and people were clapping, and the crowd are going, "Another cup for the juniors. Well done, lads." And somebody else says, "Lenny's done a marvellous job with the juniors. It just shows that no matter how bad things seem, if you try hard enough, you can overcome anything." And in the last panel, you've got Gordon turning to us as readers saying, and you've got Lenny there, still holding his cane,
Yeah.
still able to shoot, and he's shooting practice with a goalkeeper. And Gordon says to us, "I'll let you into a final little secret, lads. Lenny is still able to give me an hour's shooting practice every Monday. So the next time you see me stop for a really awkward one, just remember it's all because of the youngster who never made it."
Wow,
Yeah,
fantastic.
What a great story.
Yeah.
it's
I've
brilliant,
got
isn't it?
again. You guys mentioned the artwork, but those two panels there when the car actually hits Lenny, and then the picture of Gordon. I've got to say, it really kind of. I'm not, as everybody knows, I'm more into my football comics, but the real graphic novels of the superheroes, which
Yeah.
kind of at times have much more sort of
Dark.
depth and that real shocking feeling, if that makes sense, because of the scenes. And that's really almost like something out of one of those comics. That artwork's just absolutely amazing, especially that one where he's pinned against the wall.
He's pinned
Just
against the
yeah,
wall, and he's got his hands there, and he's looking
yeah,
down, and the light
yeah,
and the dark is very dark,
yeah.
isn't it?
And his shadow on the wall and everything. It's just brilliant artwork.
Do you know from
Yeah.
a time, like when sometimes you pick up your annual and the main your favorite story was probably drawn by another artist, whereas
Mm,
this one's drawn by the Safety Stands
yeah,
artist. And
yeah,
Yes.
obviously there's a lot of artwork,
mm,
a lot of time
mm,
gone into that and effort in for a 6-page story.
mm,
It's fantastic. It
yeah.
really is lovely artwork.
I'm
It's
gonna I'm
yeah.
gonna ask both of you though, because it's funny. I have got this annual, I know,
Yeah.
but I must admit, if I've read this story, I'd sort of forgotten it. But when you were at the fairground and the shooting, another story came to my mind, and it was quite interesting how it sort of ended. And I'm just wondering if either of you, with that spin on the ball and the way it deviated right at the end.
Oh, the what's he called? Wheelchair Wonder.
Yes, nice
Yeah.
one.
Wheelchair wonder.
Nice one, Bygone. I was wondering there a little bit. I wonder if maybe that ended up being a bit of an inspiration for that story. Old
It
Danny
might be,
Kidd.
yeah, because he was he was disabled as well, wasn't he? I
Yeah,
mean,
and that was
I
what
mean,
he could do, is put this mad spin on the ball, right?
Was it probably it's due to obviously his disability, but in real life you have like Lionel Messi, hasn't he? He's got such a low center of gravity because of he's got a didn't he have an issue with his feet or
Yeah.
something like that? So obviously it is true in real life, isn't it? I think.
Mm.
well,
Um,
famously, Garrincha
Garrincha,
from
yeah.
like the famous Brazilian player from the
Yeah.
60s.
Yeah.
He had some sort of deformity, I think, in his
Mm.
legs, I think, as
Yeah,
well.
his
And
knees, yeah.
they said that helped him with his
Yeah.
being able to swerve the ball and his dribbling
Mm.
skills.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
there probably is some. What I'm thinking when you said about shooting gallery,
Mm.
well, I was thinking
Mm.
that early on in the Roy of the Rovers story in Tiger, he
Mm.
does that. I think in 1954 or
Yeah.
55 or something like that.
Yeah.
He goes to a shooting gallery as well. But
Mm.
yeah, I know there's so many different
didn't
Mm.
stories. But
I'm
yeah,
sure you know.
wheelchair
Remember that
wonder. Yeah,
story, the football?
the football.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
might have
never.
gone to a shooting
Yeah.
gallery as well. In
I'll be
fact,
honest with that. Again, it's so funny. We've mentioned this, and I think we've had a few of the listeners and people we've been privileged and lucky enough to have come on. And we've often mentioned sort of stories in the Roy of the Rovers comic that we didn't always kind of read, and the football was one of those that I
Yeah,
didn't always
it
read.
wasn't one of my favorites. I remember reading a few of them,
Mm.
but I think I couldn't get in because the characters weren't the same characters week in, week out, so I
That's right.
couldn't
Yeah. Mm.
really
the
get
other
into them.
Mm.
the other one I didn't like was the boy who hated football.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know
Yeah.
why I have that
No.
in a comic. That
Yeah.
was
Well, not a
another one.
football comic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That I love
Well,
that story.
brilliant. Well, I think, well, even if I say so myself, three fantastic features in this episode, which
Well,
will,
Mr. Ego there. There's a Mr. Roy
yeah, yeah.
Races.
Well, certainly two great ones and one and another one that I did.
What I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's one what I did. So actually onto the social media and how you can find us. I'm going to mention the first one of how our pod started, which is the champweareunited.proboards.com. Thousands of posts. We mention it every episode, as we've said. Use it more as a reference site. There's so much on there. It's not really where most of the social media is conducted now, but it's always good to remind listeners of it. And as I say, it's a fantastic reference site. Neil, apologies. I should have asked you, are you ready to do the Facebook sites, or would you like me
No,
to carry
I'll
Oh,
give
on?
it
I
a
know.
go, and then
go on, mate.
if I miss
Sorry,
one,
I should have.
no, it's fine. I've got to stand up and take some responsibility now. We've got the Champ We Are United and Football Picture Story monthly fans group that's on Facebook. We've got the Roy of the Rovers comic 40 years on, and in brackets Melchester Rovers, which is also on Facebook there. We've got Striker World, obviously Pete and Ash's. That's a Facebook group, and we've also got X, or formerly known as Twitter.
Oh, he's doing it. Oh, look at that. He's on fire. Go for it, Bygone. Go for it.
Got
Come on, bring it
got that all
home.
down there. That's the Mighty World of British Comic at Champ. Have I got that right? Have I done that right? No, messed up.
Well, there is a mighty world. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There
Yeah,
yeah,
he
it's
is.
yeah.
There's
because
another.
I've got it all down on my notebook. So there's the Mighty World of British Comic, and we've got at Champ underscore R for on the X.
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
So
Good
Apologies. I
stuff.
think my interruption there stopped your flow, but I thought you'd moved on to X and then you went back to the mighty world of
I
British
know I'm
comic.
sorry, it's because I've
No,
got to
no,
remember
no,
and get
it's
it
my
mixed
fault.
up.
I interrupted, so apologies, but
No,
nice
it's
one,
me.
Bygone. Brilliant. Picking up the ball there. It was like Jimmy Slade against Blackpool, moving past opponents and bang, smashing
Yeah.
it in. I
I'm not
just
going to get
Young,
will,
ahead of
young,
myself though. I
young
know.
Neil Berrigan, the young
and
Neil
young Neil
Berrigan.
Berrigan, yeah. I'm just gonna just
God, that's not
on
been said for 40 years.
I am just going to just mention, as we like to, obviously, massive thanks to Ed Taylor, who, of course, is
Yeah.
the person that founded the Roy of the Rovers comic 40 years on page. Right then. Well, I think it's been a great episode. I think it's time for goodbyes or any other thoughts. I'm going to go over to you, Matt.
Yeah, no, yeah, really enjoyed it. It was great to hear the first part. Don't know how many parts we're going to have of so strap yourself in, listeners. You know how these can go on forever. That was great fun to have you back in the presenting hot seat, so to speak,
Yeah.
with a feature. So that's great. And yeah, that was a great find, Neil. And it was interesting how the story went off to tangents. And so funny that Trevor posted that as well. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I
Uncanny,
enjoyed
isn't it?
it. Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. Yeah, and yeah, I look forward to number 94, episode
Wow.
Yeah.
94.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. I might ask Trevor if he knows which article I'm going to cover next time before I do.
Well, you know what? I was just thinking, you covered, was it the Ghost Striker? Is there something like
Yeah.
that going on? I might have to look, see if there's an anagram of your two names or something going on here.
Oh, bother.
Well, because the
Yeah.
thing is, yeah, so Trevor's not only just doing reviews, he's doing previews as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
What a
I'm
genius.
gonna have to, I'm gonna have to wear a lead hat or something like that to stop my thoughts getting out.
Bowler hat. Yeah.
Before that, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Anything else from you then, Neil?
No, as I say, I've myself again have really enjoyed this. I enjoy everyone. I think they're all brilliant. But no, I've really enjoyed it. I loved your first part of the review of the season. It's going to be interesting. It's amazing how much you forget of storylines, because you read them and you read them quick and you miss bits
Yeah.
out. But yeah, and I think I'm really enjoying that. And again, the safest stands in soccer. It's a favourite of mine, and I really enjoyed that as well. I keep saying enjoyed. I'm going to have to get a thesaurus and come up with some new words.
Brilliant.
We'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then I think it's left for me. Well, I'm not sure you guys did do your goodbyes or not, but I'm just going to say I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah, back doing one of my European season reviews. I hope the listeners enjoyed that. There was a moment in the Ralton Milk Cup match where I lost my way, but hopefully that didn't ruin it too much. But I think that's been a great episode with a gem of a book that Bygone's found and a fantastic safest hands of soccer. Yes, we'll be back in episode 94. Not quite sure what we've got. This one was a little bit Roy of the Rovers heavy, but don't worry, we will be back to the United verse before you know it. So that's 93 over, and we look forward to catching up with you all in episode 94. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Oh, everybody has to wave these days.